should we move on to the next session?
Yeah. Thank you,
Dilyana,
Maria.
over to you. Have I pronounced your name correctly there? Is it Dilyana?
Yeah, we'll practice
Yeah.
in a minute. I'll give you a shortcut.
Okay, we'll hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Cool. So let me guys, when you can see my screen, should be coming up anytime.
Yeah, can see it.
Yeah, cool. Well, so first, Maria, thank you so much for that session. I normally specialize more in base apps, so Azure and IoT is not really something I know much of, so really good overview and introductory session, a lot to take on. I probably have forgotten half of my content because I had to make space for that content, but really good session, thank you. Cool. So moving on, Context IQ. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here and really giving me the chance to talk to you about Context IQ, even when you probably, chances are, don't know what Context IQ is. And that's fine. We'll go through it together. Introductions. Dilyana Radulova. People do struggle to pronounce my name, so everybody calls me Didi because it is easier, more efficient, shorter. So whatever is easier, really. Technical specialist with Microsoft. I got my MVP last year for all of the work I've been doing around business applications and Dynamics 365 marketing. I speak at a lot of events. I get very engaged with the community. Love it. Last year, joined Microsoft, had to give up my MVP because you cannot be MVP and work for Microsoft at the same time. And when I'm not doing that, I do a lot of Taekwondo. So if you want to talk about any of those things, happy to. Then the plan for today is we have already done the introductions. Then what we'll do is we'll jump into the Context IQ, and the way we have structured that is we'll go through an overview of what it is, and then I probably have around 10, 12 different features to show you. So we'll go into that and then we'll do Q&A, but I probably have around just under 20, 17, 18 minutes worth of content. So we do have some time for questions. So my preference is if I'm saying something that doesn't make sense or you're not really sure, do stop me and ask, and let's have a chat as we go. I think it's much easier than saving it towards the end and then trying to flick back, because it is much more important for you guys to understand a few of the slides than me going and showing you all of the slides I have in mind. I would much rather we have a chat about what you think is important. How does that sound? Does that sound okay? Yeah? Cool.
Sounds good.
Good. So Context IQ. Before we do that, so the assumption for my session is that you already know what Dynamics 365 is and does. So can you have a quick quiz? Is anybody brave enough to tell me what Dynamics is and tell everybody else? I need to volunteer, otherwise I'm going to volunteer somebody. I know at least 2 people who know what it is on the call. So the exam question is, what is Dynamics 365? Or even an example of what a Dynamics 365 application is, and just a brief summary of what it does. Because if we don't know that, the session is not going to make too much sense.
So my understanding of Dynamics 365 is it's like the sales side of like the Microsoft platform. So you can use it for like account management, ticketing, and then you can have products that you can use to sell from it. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, so that is a really good, it's not all of it, but it is a good example of what one of the application does. So we have Dynamics 365 is a portfolio of different solutions. They're tailored as very complex backend scenarios for different departments. And we have that concept of cater of every person in every room in the house. So the one, Simon, you described is Dynamics 365 sales, targeting the sales department. It's an enterprise wide application, and it's the function. One of the main functionality is around creating or generating leads, progressing those through an opportunity. It has product catalog functionality, so it can help you with that business process flow behind the scenes. So that's one example. We have another one which is around customer service, and that's the application that people in the call centers use. So that's Dynamics 365 Customer Service, call center. It's to do with queue management, raising cases, putting them in the right place, getting the right agent to pick up the right case based on skill set, SLA, so making sure the case is picked up in the right time frame. That's another example. Another example of a different Dynamics 365 application is marketing, and that's to do obviously with the marketing team, where you can create customer journeys, you can send marketing emails, create pretty content, add colors, branded content, or things like that. So it's not one thing. It's different out-of-the-box applications that are pre-built and different departments in the enterprise can use. Does that make sense? Right, cool. Oh, we have a hand up. That's very polite. Just jump in, guys. Don't put your hand up. Yeah, go for it, Mohammed. Does I know?
I think he's typing.
Yeah.
Might be easier to just chat.
Oh, it's come off mute. Here we go.
So I think, see, my my understanding from Dynamics 365 is just like it's equivalent of SAP's, the Microsoft product. So what all we have in the SAP, so I think that's equivalent in Dynamics 365. That's what my understanding.
It is a competitor, yeah, so it is a similar application. But I think it's worth probably coming back another time and just doing a session on Dynamics 365 because it's such a big topic. So I think for now, what I want you to understand and what I think will be enough for the session today is just remember set of applications that have different functionality to help different complicated backend processes for different departments in the organization. I know I'll explain a bit more. I'll give you some more examples as we look at the screenshots a bit later on. So now that we know what Dynamics is, Context IQ is slightly different. So Context IQ is something that got released or got announced in Microsoft Ignite last year, end of last year. I think it was November, October time. And it's not one thing. It's not one product. That's the common misconception. It's what it is. It's a set of integrations between Dynamics 365, which now we all know what it is, and Microsoft 365 that really help with things like connecting, communicating, and collaborating on different day-to-day tasks. And we also know what Microsoft 365 is. That's all things like Microsoft Editor, Teams, PowerPoint, Office, Excel, all of those apps that we are already using on a day-to-day. So all of those different features and deep integrations between the two is what we have chosen to call Context IQ. So hopefully this makes sense. So what the breakdown, when we talk about the different features within Context IQ, we normally group them into two different categories. We talk about the first bucket being collaboration in the flow of work, and the second one is around more accessible and shareable business data. In the collaboration flow of work, I'll show you four different features. We'll talk about customer support swarming in customer service, because now we know what customer service is. We'll talk about the embedded chat, Teams chat functionality. I'll show you the unified meetings experience, leveraging AI and conversation intelligence, and we'll talk a bit about the live co-presence through Dynamics 365 applications. On the more accessible and shareable business data, when we normally talk about it, we talk about the concept around finding, sharing, viewing, and connecting. And then I'll also show you a bit around the mention, and we'll see how we're doing for time. I might show you a bit about the loop component, or I'll send the slides after and let you see a few videos afterwards. Also, if you want to learn more, I have given you some links to some of the blogs that have all of those announcements of what Context IQ is, was, and how it has been developing in the past few months, and also the link to the session in Ignite when it actually got announced. Are we still okay? Does that still make sense? Because the next we're going to jump into each one of those and show you how it works. But do we conceptually understand what we're looking at? Okay, we're getting some notes. No more quizzes. I'm not going to test you anymore. Oh, well, I'm not planning to, but I still might. So the first one is around the customer support swarming in Dynamics 365. What you have in front of you is an example of what your Dynamics 365 customer service app can look like. And that's the one we said is what the agents in the customer service can be using to deal with their cases. Somebody phones in, something is not working, they raise a complaint, and an agent needs to resolve it. So that's standard Dynamics 365 functionality. What the new feature is that Context IQ brings in, it creates you to create swarms when you're on your case. And what that does, it gives you one but. So you're an agent, you're trying to resolve the case, you're struggling because you don't have all of the information or you don't have the experience. What you can do is you can create that swarm and a screen like this opens up. So then the first thing you need to do is you need to put a bit of description of what you're struggling with and what you don't know how to resolve and what skills you think you need in the people who can help you with. And then what the system does is it goes away and finds people with those skills in the system and then creates a Teams chat behind the scenes and embeds it on your case record. It sends invitations to those people, asks them to the team chat, and it means that you can start resolving the problem for the customer, for the person on the other side of the phone in real time right away, because you have that collaboration within the team. Does that make sense? Do we understand the concept of swarming? Because it's a very new one in customer service. That's why it's pretty exciting, I think. Cool. So swarming, customer service, available in customer service and allows us to collaborate and create chats based on different capabilities that we need for resolving the case. The next one I want us to look at is the Teams chat. So that's kind of the predecessor of the swarming. That's how it all started some months back. What we could do even before is start a chat from within our Dynamics 365 record, and we can start collaborating without having to flick between applications. So that's what it could do end of last year. The new developments in Context IQ with the latest release is we have first test bit here, where you have some AI going through the case and analyzing what contacts we might want to start a chat with. So that means it analyzes things like the notes you have on your case or the transcript of what the customer has said when they were on the phone, or all of the different touch points you might have had with them. And it suggests contacts you might want to talk to within the organization that have resolved a similar case or that have done something that maybe can help you with the case. And then the second bit of AI that we have as part of introduced as part of Context IQ is that AI description here. That means that now when you initiate that chat, instead of you having to manually explain what you need help with and what the problem is, again, AI scans the information you have on the case and puts that description for you. And it also puts a bit of a summary of what resolutions you have tried, what you have tried to resolve it already. Cool. Again, I trust you that you'll stop me if it doesn't make sense. I'm not going to ask you after each one, but hopefully if it doesn't make sense, stop me and we'll have a chat. The next new feature introduced as part of Context IQ is we have around the unified meeting experience. And that allows us to do 3 different things. So first, now we can create and join our Teams meetings from Dynamics 365, which is it probably might not sound like a big deal to you, but if you're an agent and you live and breathe every day in Dynamics 365, not having to flick between those apps, if you do it hundreds of times a day, does help with your productivity and does save time. Once you're in your Teams meeting, what you can also do is, as we have seen here, so what we see here is a Dynamics 365 record. So that's information pulled from the database within Dynamics in your Teams meeting, and it means you can start viewing that data, but also interacting with it and updating it as you're on the call. So Simon, for your example with the salespeople, it means you can have your opportunity on and you can update what products the people on the call are interested in. You can update if they're not interested in something. So it really helps salespeople, again, not have to flick between different screens. And then the last one, it's again conversational intelligence. So that's where we have a bit of AI again running behind the scenes, and it gives those salespeople on the call the next best action. So it would suggest things they might want to talk about. So it would analyze what other people in the database that have similar products have bought. So it would say, oh, you might want to talk to them about product X. So it helps them with the conversation, and it gives them things to talk about. Any questions? No questions. Cool. I hope I haven't lost you completely and you guys are still following.
I've got a quick question for you.
Good.
'Cause you mentioned
Excellent.
Dynamics was a set of application services. So does that Teams integration integrate with all those applications? So any Dynamics application like CRM or anything like that?
Which one do you mean? Because they're it's very feature specific. Which feature specifically?
You were talking about, the ability to connect to your Teams call from Dynamics. And
This
Dynamics
one.
is a different set of applications. So does that work in all the applications that Dynamics offers?
Yeah. So the first part, joining from your Dynamics, that bit works in all of them. And then when you join, you're obviously in Teams. So then you can visualize that data from Dynamics in Teams. But yeah, this one works with the whole suite of applications.
Okay.
The swarming one, for example, is only available. The first one I show you, the group chat, is only available in customer service, but this one is across the board.
Okay. So what's the difference because within Teams you can publish the application, can't you? You can publish various Dynamics applications within Teams, and then share the application with other users. Is that not doing the same thing? Is that doing something different?
It's not one or the other. It's just a number of different ways to have those integrations between the two systems. And it's giving more options to users to decide where do they want to spend more of their time. Do they want to spend it? And we'll have some screenshots of that later where we surface Dynamics data in Teams if people like to spend their day in Teams. But if they like to spend it in Dynamics, and interact through Teams from there, they can do that. So it just gives you the flexibility to do it on whichever side you feel more comfortable, but still have the same experience.
Thank you.
Cool. Perfect. Any other questions? No? Okay. Then the next one we have is live profile card with contact details and live presence. And that's something that if you haven't used Dynamics, you might take for granted. But I think, again, it's pretty exciting because we haven't had it not for a while, we haven't had it in Dynamics. And you might have seen that collaboration in things like SharePoint, or you might have seen it in Dynamics 365 Customer Voice if you have used it, what that does. So we have our Dynamics sales system. We have an example of just an opportunity record on the screen. What we can now see is we can see who the different people collaborating on that record are. We can see, are they editing the thing? We can start a group chat if we wanted to see what they're doing, if we needed some advice. So we can see what team of people are actively collaborating on what we are working on at the moment. And that's something that we didn't have before. So that, again, is something that I think will be quite useful when it comes in. Yep, cool. I'm getting some notes. Okay, so that concludes the first part, the collaboration in the flow of work. The second, how are we doing for time, by the way? Are we okay for time? Yeah, cool. So then the second part, I think, is slightly shorter than the first one, so we should be okay. It's around, as we said, the more accessible and shareable business data. So again, we'll do the same. We'll go through the features that are part of that bucket. First one, around find what you need faster. And what that does is we have made it easier to surface your results, whatever that might be. That might be files, documents, customer records, people, whatever it might be. from all of the different places that you might want to search from. And Mohammed, I think that's similar to what you were asking. We can do it in one place, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to do it from another place, because we might have different people to work in a different way. And so what that gives us is the ability to search everything which is in our Dataverse, which is the underlying database behind all of those Dynamics applications, and surface that data in things like Teams, SharePoint, Office, wherever we might want to search it, with still respecting all of the security profiles that we have built, which means that you're not going to start randomly seeing things in Teams that you weren't meant to see in Dynamics in the first place. But it means, just like as you see here in the screenshot, it means that when you search for South Africa in Teams, it can search through your Dynamics, it can search through your files, it can search through your messages and surface all of those different results. Cool. Next one around share and update. So I think that's what you were meaning before, when we can create, so we can do a number of different things. We can bundle applications and deploy them to Teams, or we can have, as we have here, that's a Dynamics 365 record, and we can put the card, embed the card into a Teams channel or a Teams chat, whatever it might be, and put it there for everybody to see. So again, if we have people who don't want to be in Dynamics, just want to keep on doing what they're doing with their database in Teams, we can do that as well, because we can surface whatever information we want from Teams. I want to spend a bit of time talking about the mention. So the mention is something that we have probably already experienced, because now if you are writing an email, you can just do the @ symbol and mention somebody, and that tags them in a way. With Context IQ, you'll be able to do that with Dynamics 365 records as well. And why is that useful? Because if you want to message everybody within your sales team who is working on the same opportunity, you can do that, and you can mention that Dynamics record, and it will embed it in your email as well. You can do the same with documents that are online. And so that's what we have here. We have an example of how we can, all of the different things we can mention on top of people as part of your email flow. And then once you have mentioned it, then you can do a number of different things. You can choose how you want to surface that information. It can just be a record, or you can display a card, which again displays whatever information is reasonable or you want for your email. Which again, if somebody doesn't like to operate in Teams or Dynamics, but they like their email, they can do it from that side as well. So we're just surfacing the same information in multiple different places. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. And I think that's the last from the Dynamics 365 side of things. It's on the connect concept. And that's just to show you that all of the same card that we saw in the email earlier, we can also put it in the Teams chat as well. So that means usually the flow is, if you initiate your chat from your Dynamics record, again, you don't have to write that description. You can embed that summary card, that view card in your Teams, and then the other person on the other side of the Teams chat have that information without having to flick between the two applications.
I've got a quick question, sorry.
Good, doesn't have to be quick. Questions
Okay.
are good.
Do you know so are we saying that when people are chatting in Teams, they've got their own conversations going on, they're storing information, let's say about a customer. So does this product allow you to chat within here, and the data is also stored in there for other people to see as well if needed? Is it all kind of bringing all the applications together so you don't have to go and chat in Teams? Teams kind of integrates into this.
Yeah, exactly. So, and by this, I assume you mean Dynamics, because Context IQ is not really a product. Context IQ is just a set of integrations between Dynamics and the different of Microsoft Office 365 applications.
Right, okay. It connects them together.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get a license for Context IQ. It's not one thing. It's just a smart way and different integrations, deeper integrations between the different products that let you use them more efficiently and help with productivity. Because again, each one of those on its own, maybe it's not a big deal, but when you do that hundreds and hundreds times a day or an hour, every minute we save makes a big difference to the contact center or to the bottom line in the end of the month, for example.
Right. So it's basically bringing teams together. It's bringing information. It's making information becoming accessible easily compared to being everywhere.
Yes.
It's kind of right.
And it also helps people because there are people who like to work in their email client in Outlook. They can do that because we can surface that Dynamics 365 information. So we want the data to be stored in Dataverse, which is the database underlying Dynamics 365.
Right. Okay.
That's
yeah.
where we want the center of the truth to be. And then it's just a matter of where we surface it. If you like to work in your email, we can surface it in Outlook. If you like to work in Teams, we can surface it in Teams. And if you like working in Dynamics, you can do that. But everybody will see the same information.
Okay. Thank you.
Respecting the security model, because that's usually the biggest consideration afterwards. So the security still stands as if you were in Dynamics.
Perfect.
So you're not
Thank
going
you.
to see random things for random reasons.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Cool. Anytime. How are we doing for time? I have 2 more slides on the loop component, but it's slightly different. So it's up to us whether we go through them or whether we send them afterwards.
No, it's okay. We've got 5
I
minutes.
think you've got 5 minutes before the next session.
Okay, perfect. Well, so hopefully now Context IQ, the integration between Dynamics and those Office 365 apps makes sense. The next part I briefly wanted us to touch on is a loop component. And again, that's a new thing that you might not have heard. It's pretty exciting because it's colorful, it's jazzy, it's funky. It just lets people have a bit of fun while collaborating, because I don't want to make it sound unserious. It can be used for serious things. But I think for now, the accent is almost on the fun aspect of it. What it does is it helps people, or it allows people to work together on things like lists, tables, notes, and Dynamics 365 records as well. And you can do that again in a number of different places. You can do it on what we call a loop page, which is kind of self-contained. We can do it in a chat, in a Teams chat. We can do it in an email, in a meeting, on a document, whatever it might be. And just to give you a flavor of how it looks like, so if we play this, that's all of the different components we could add, and that's an example how in Teams you can add a voting table. You can see who has said what their preferred option was, who has voted. So it just lets people define options and just really collaborate and have a bit of fun together. And that's one aspect. The other aspect is around the collaboration, around the pages aspect. So that's where we can start defining content together. And as you can see, we can have different people swapping things, collaborating, liking things, reacting to things. So it just really, again, trying to bring a bit of fun and lightheartedness and in your day-to-day work, also collaborating, because for documents that could be really useful. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a visual idea where the loop component is going to go into. Again, it's going to have very deep integration with all of the different products, but I'm sure that's something we'll see more and more in the future releases. And I think that was all I was going to show you today. Any questions? I'm glad we had some questions along the way, because it's really not fun to just sit and talk to you guys for whatever time it might be. It's much better to have that interaction. Did it make sense?
It was very good. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent.
I've learned something, and I did keep saying and that. So yeah.
Well, hopefully not just one thing. Hopefully you learned more than one thing today.
No, sorry. I've learned. I'm not a user. Well, I do use Dynamics at Microsoft, but I wasn't aware of Context IQ. So thank you very much. Just
Very
one
good.
question. What about live chat? in terms of how would it help with live chat on a customer's website? Does that all fit in as well? Does that kind of...
It can, but it's slightly different. So for a live chat, we can do a number of different things. And so you don't mean a bot, do you? You mean a real-time chat? Because a bot
Yeah,
would be
real-time
usually
chat,
the
yeah.
first. So then we would probably we can configure it. It would be part of the omni-channel solution,
Right.
and we can embed it. Yeah, we can embed it on your website. We have different channels. We can do it on Facebook as well. We can do it on Twitter. And when a customer starts that chat, it just comes as a request to your omni-channel solution. We can be smart. We can configure availability queues so that we can have a special channel agent that only deals with chat. We can have a different agent that deals with Facebook chat requests, and it lets you accept it, and then you just start chatting away. So it's slightly different to the context IQ is more around the internal collaboration rather than external chatting to customers.
Right, cool, thank you.
It's more how you work internally, how you collaborate internally to help the person externally, but it's around the internal collaboration.
So it's internal only. Perfect, thank you.
I've got another question for you quickly.
Excellent. Doesn't have to be quick.
No, you mentioned lists. Would you be able to do tasks? Like, create tasks and assign them to different users or different groups and then share the same data within email or within Teams or within the Dynamics applications?
Within the Dynamics, and also I think it can, but I think the more useful use case around tasks and meetings is from your email, because what it can do is it can suggest time. So let's say you're typing an email to your sales team, 4 different people, and you type something like, let's meet up on Tuesday. What it would do is it would go and look up the 4 calendars for Tuesday, and it would suggest you might want to meet between 6 and 7, for example. So it will do that. It will suggest available slots, available times as well.
If you're federated with another organization, will it be able to look at that organization's calendar as well?
I think that's pushing it at the moment. It is a new thing.
Oh, okay.
I think so, because it only got released last November. So I think I'm sure it's on the roadmap, but I think the plan, I think the plan for now is get it right within your own organization, and then I'm sure we'll expand. But for now, I think we're more focused on the. But maybe I'm wrong. But for what I know, I think the focus is on the internal organization to start with.
I find that's one of the hardest things, finding a slot in different organizations' calendars to fit in a single meeting. So
I can check for you. Yeah, I can. I have made an assumption. I just realized in my head it was always going to be internal, but I can definitely check, because maybe it works externally as well, and maybe I have lied to all of you.
I'm just asking. No, it'd be really good. Thank you.
Cool.
There's no more questions in the chat either. If nobody has any more questions, shall we move on to the next session? That was a brilliant session, by the way. I really loved it.
Good, I'm glad, because when we started with nobody knows Dynamics, I'm like, well, that's not going to go very well if I talk about integration of Dynamics and other things. Nobody knows what Dynamics does. So I'm glad we spent some time to go through that part. But thank you guys for all of the engagement. I really loved it.
Oh, welcome. Both sessions have been brilliant, because I don't do anything with IoT and I don't do anything with Dynamics, so I've learned so much.
And I learned where Bradford is. It's such a useful day.
You just have to come and visit now.
Highlight of my day. Cool. Well, yeah. So that's my contact details. Keep in touch. Keep the conversation going, and now I can pass on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Dilyana.